The deliveries, I have to say, were magnificent. Thank you very much. And the breadth of experience and knowledge was quite mind-blowing. Want to take questions. I was going to say, particularly for Hannah, if she's still with us. I know she was having to finish. Has anybody a question for Hannah Barton? Sir.
I have, yes. Good evening, everybody. Can I just echo what you've just said, Peter? I think all the panelists have spoken so well and informed us so brilliantly tonight. The two farmers particularly have given us so much information about why solar farms are so harmful. Can I just say to Hannah then, I was chairman of the planning committee at Lichfield District Council for 6 years. We had a fairly high profile application 2 years ago over near Clifton Campville, near to a grade 1 listed church within a mile of St Andrew's Church in Clifton Campville. It had so many reasons for refusal, but it was approved. So I think this is a real David and Goliath struggle, and I really appreciate what Hannah had to say. But I honestly think that there is so much weight now given to these solar farm applications that they're very, very difficult to refuse. They really are. And I hate to say that, but that is my own experience. And the other thing that happened was the applicants, without a shadow of a doubt, doctored the ALC classification. They made out it was 3B. I had it on good authority from the local farmer that it was 2B and some of it was 2A. And when I challenged the applicant over this, it was deferred. They came back and said, yes, we have made a mistake. Some of the area is at a higher classification than we stated, but it still came back as a very disingenuous critique of that ALC classification. We're up against, there is so much money involved here that people will lie. Seriously, professional bodies will lie in order to get these applications through. Can I just say one other point? The elephant in the room, which hasn't been mentioned tonight, is net zero. We're here tonight because of the insane principle of net zero. And one of the reasons why Reform did so well, I'm a Tory councillor, but Reform did very well. They're the only party that has said they would get rid of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Wiles, I'm a parish councillor from Maxham Trussell, Bedford, Tellersley Hay. I'm also an ex-CGB engineer way back. And I've been working for a long time in offshore wind. And I've seen all the same things that you've described so nicely, Michael. It's frightening. But there are lots of details that we could pick at tonight. I think it's a waste of time. What we need to decide is how we fight at both national and local level. And we need to find and pay to help us fight. We are using Hannah to help us develop our neighbourhood plans. I'm still unsure whether that's going to be man enough to stop these things which are coming. They're coming to all of us, and they're coming with stupidity. It's been well said. They're coming with arrant ignorance, and it's all driven by money, as it is with the offshore wind. I'm a proponent of offshore wind, but the early days were done extremely badly. All the same stories, developers doing it wrong, selling it off before anybody noticed, and walking away from the problems. And you'll have exactly the same with the solar panels. And not to add the slavery issues, the deterioration of the panels with time, and they leak power to earth, with all sorts of problems, including to the local pipelines. There are loads and loads of problems. What you need to decide is what you're going to do to fight nationally and locally.
So, if I'm reducing the election you obviously the parish council. We hadn't got this yet, but I did come in an order campaign. The reason that I'm telling you that I came today is we really wanted to know how we should prepare for this. I hear neighbourhood plans. I hear lots of statistics in terms of Stowe. I have an ask. Can we relate the statistics? Can we prepare en masse? Because it strikes me that they take us as small pawns and pick us off. If we are all prepared, if we all commit to doing neighbourhood plans, I mean, don't talk about one of those. If we actually form, I won't say an action group, I mean, that always has bad connotations, but if we were to commit to work as a whole in unison, perhaps Staffordshire becomes a little less apocalyptic and attractive to people. I mean, it's interesting. You talk about wind power. 200 acres of solar farm is the equivalent of one wind turbine. Solar farm will only work to 11% of its capacity. And it only works in summer when there's less demand for electricity. We've got all of these things that we can start to pull. And I wonder if there's something that we can prepare a template. I went online, I found that East Anglia have templates for all of their councils which have been affected. Can we do something as a group? I'm not giving you a solution. I'm asking you a question and hoping that people say, yes, we could form something and do something.
You have jumped ahead of myself because I've just written down the way forward. And that really is to see what people feel. But you wanted to come in, sir.
Right. I'm Dave Green, the Common Parish Council, and I'm also the chairman of the St. Valley Landscape, who are an active campaign group trying to prevent the solar panel fogging. I'm also a member, many of you won't be aware of the United Kingdom Solar Panel Alliance, which is an umbrella group for all the campaign groups all around the country trying to stop solar farms. They have a massive wealth of information generated over many years, 5, 10 plus. They have all sorts of expertise, information, whatever. You can go to them and say, right, can I have information about one particular aspect that you may be concerned with, biodiversity, for instance, and they will give you sort of information about biodiversity and whatever. Also, our group, we have commissioned 3 experts. Well, we've commissioned 1, we've got 2 in the pipeline. We have commissioned a planning strategist who is our guiding light as to what we need to do, when we need to do it, how we need to do it, because we're just simple people. We're, to coin a phrase with the post office, we are skint little people trying to take on massive organisations with phenomenal wealth from both this country and from abroad. We've also got a landscape specialist involved, and they don't come cheap. They're sort of £200 an hour, but you've got to do it if you want it. And we've also got heritage experts. Again, expensive, but if you want to win, you've got to sort of say people need something what they're holding for to them. They'll just put it in. You get an expert with letters behind the name and qualifications, so on. So that's what you've got to factor in if you want to win. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to echo what the farmers have said in the room. No one's so threat the nature or the wildlife. We take a tractor in time and we take a common up and down the line. It just about fits. We won't say we damage the road, but there's always a risk to the road with the heavy vehicles. We're hauling grain, we're hauling 18 tonne upwards at a time. It's heavy on the roads. Has anyone thought about the nature, the wildlife? All these wagons going up and down tight roads, the wildlife's just going to disappear. And also, I'm sure the farmers will agree, we combine, we bale hay. We don't take it out of the field straight away. If we've got a field of hay or straw that's next to one of these solar farms and there's a fire, not only are we going to damage the land that the solar power system is on, we're going to lose crop, we're going to lose feed for the livestock. That needs to be counted and thought of as something to bring this no applause for the wildlife and the farmers there whatsoever. Thank you.
Sir.
Good evening. Again, my name's John Fox also from Rugeley Town Council. I was, prior to my retirement, I was a truck driver and I worked for a local firm down at Pasture Fields, and I drove down these lanes. So I know what it was like to drive down these lanes. And as Mr. Holcroft said there, a lot of these truck drivers that are going to come down these lanes en masse are going to go and sneak down the lanes that they're not supposed to go down. So I would seriously think about what is going to come down these lanes, what damage they're going to make, and what they're going to do to your infrastructure as they come, and make sure that they know where they're going, because they're going to damage your lanes, and they are guaranteed that they will damage your lanes.
So,
Yes, thank you. Nigel Yates, Bill Town Councillor and Stafford Moors District Council. Government member for climate change, Stafford Moors. Some of the comments which have been made extremely valid. I totally utterly accept that. But I like to just remind people on that. Ed Miliband's been in for 10 months. A lot of these solar panel applications have been in awful longer than 10 months. So I think that criticism aimed at one particular person is a little disingenuous and a little bit of what I will say as well is that what's happened in Ukraine, whether that's the fault of an individual parish council, whatever, it's proved the problem with energy security. So the question is, yes, I wouldn't particularly want to field of solar panels in front of me, you know, you can do this and you don't me to say that. Saying that I have got solar panels on my roof, saying that I have got lithium batteries, and saying that I'm producing about 2/3 of my annual consumption, which includes running 2 electric cars. So I'm trying to preach what I do. Yeah, practice what I preach, not just say. What is the alternative? What would you? Wind turbine? I remember going to a chap who's got a small wind turbine and having a look at it. And he says, I own these fields here. I look at the boundary down there, look at the boundary there. I said, no, sounds good for the boundary. I don't think he wants to go there. He says that one wind turbine would have to be filled with all that. What would you prefer, a wind turbine or those solar panels? The larger the wind turbine in the appropriate place, no need for solar panels. Would you prefer fracking, drill, baby, drill, is what the report councils are saying? Would you prefer fracking? And the field front of you, because there's plenty of shade underneath there. I'm a little bit deep, would you prefer a small modular nuclear power station just outside Rugeley, just outside Reading? Now, I mean, it's difficult questions. At the end of the day, we've seen what happens when we don't have our energy security. We've seen what happens with a semi, and I'll use the word semi, unregulated energy industry, and whose fault was that if we are naming and blaming, to be perfectly honest. So let's have a little bit of a reality check that we need energy. Let's agree that an awful lot of the points which have been made here are extremely valid. And I'll give you 3 things which you can do to help yourselves. One is lobby your county council to do a local area energy plan. I certainly did, didn't it, Bill? And it got absolutely nowhere. So perhaps the new regime will be a little bit open-minded. That will identify the corridors and prime areas so we know where you're looking. You can then start to identify what's the best form of energy to put there and what support it is from battery storage. And then, no, not then, at the same time as in now, make sure that your district and borough councils, while you've got them, have got a fully up-to-date and sensible local plan. How many haven't? We certainly haven't. And I hear Stafford certainly hasn't. How many hasn't? And then on the back of that, try to bolt on your neighbourhood plan. Your neighbourhood plan doesn't carry a lot of weight, but built in as a set of volumes to produce that narrative, it does the best way. But remember, we need energy of some sort.
thank you.
Might I perhaps answer some of the questions that were raised?
Yes.
We have our energy independence. We're just choosing not to use it. We have oil that we could drill for. We have gas we could drill for. We have on land shale that we could drill for. we do have fracking going on in the UK, and it's going down in Poole Harbour, and it's been fracked down there for the last 20 years in an area of outstanding national beauty with absolutely no protests whatsoever.
And you almost can't see it.
And you almost can't see it unless you happen to know it's there. China is commissioning a new coal-fired power station every month at the moment. Their plans for this year for building coal-fired power stations will exceed the carbon dioxide output of the whole of the UK in 1 year. So it's a question for the world, because the carbon dioxide goes right the way around the world, and it will make us as poorly served as anybody else. So we need a world solution here, not somebody trying to crucify the UK for the sake of our 1% contribution to the carbon dioxide that the world produces in a year. We are small, diminishingly small. And for us to rush to try and get to net zero, I think Ed Miliband thinks it's first, but he's obviously forgotten about the Nordic countries that are all on hydropower and have been for many years. We're net zero already.
Michael Birch from Exeter Parish Council. After the last speaker, well before Michael, wanted to answer that question, but Michael, who's also an engineer, I'm an engineer, he answered that question far better than I could have done. However, there are two inconvenient truths with the things that were said by the previous speaker. The first one is that renewable energy has been sold as low-cost, free energy. And you know, if that was true, the UK would have the lowest cost electrical energy in the developed world, because we've been doing it so long and we've got so much of it. The actual truth is we have the highest cost electrical energy in the developing world, and there is no ceiling on energy cost. Whenever MPs are asked how far will this go, no, well, there's a lie that it'll be cheaper next year, but there's no real answer about the ceiling. So the result of that will be that fuel poverty will be widespread in the UK. That will affect the poorer members of society. Any energy consuming industry, which is all industries, any manufacturing industry, for example, it will not be able to operate in the UK because of the current and future energy costs. So you know, that's the first sort of inconvenient truth that has come up today. The other one is, as you said, this is a global issue. It is global climate change. It's being driven by possibly America, certainly by India, certainly by China. And it's right that we try and help the globe. However, at what expense of trashing local environments, local livelihoods and local jobs?
Thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah, can I come in? Can I come in? It's picking up what Nigel said, actually. I was trying to remember the date because I shouldn't forget it, because somebody drove into the side of my car on the same day. I think it was November the 10th. And I've been to all councillors, as I understood what I was told on the day, all councillors in the north of Staffordshire have been invited. This is district, borough and county, have been invited to, and city, and have been invited to a meeting at Fenton by National Grid. There was me and another city councillor. That was it. There was somebody from, I think from the Village Hall or the Community Foundation, and there were 4 environmental officers been invited from Moorlands, East Staffs, Newcastle and Stafford. I think 2 of those turned up. So it was a bit of an empty room. So all of the things that I've spoken about tonight about the National Grid's problem are purely from an amateur's point of view, not a professional. and I began to understand their problems. I spoke about it in my talk about they've had to go from distributing power from large power stations down through transformers out to your house. Nobody told them about the changes to the feed-in tariff, where you're paid for the electric that you produce on your roof with solar panels. Nobody's told them about the rush to heat pumps and the amount of power that they consume, or your electric car. They talked about KVAs, not kilowatts. KVA is a theoretical. They've been given a couple of £1 billion to do the area that we're in, from Lincolnshire over to Shropshire and down to Gloucestershire, to put the infrastructure in to try and pick this up. This infrastructure will go to the transformer that probably serves your estate or your neighbourhood. You will have to pay for anything that goes from your house to that transformer. If you're on an estate with 39 houses and you've got an electric car and a plug-in, you're probably the only one who will be able to have an electric plug-in charger at home. The system isn't big enough. So all of the stuff about solar farms is because you're close. If you're a farmer and you're close to a major line, then not one of the big overheads, but some of the smaller stuff, then they can feed it in. The speakers have been going on about the developers disappearing. Perfectly true. They promise the farmer thousands of pounds an acre rent, but then say there will be taking it away. But I've never seen anybody come up with a piece of paper and says this is how we're going to do it. So, you know, to say that a local energy plan, Nigel, the National Grid have already got them. They know exactly how much power is required in an area and how it's going to be supplied. The problem is, as we've picked up, is how do we turn this into something that's a solution? Because the coal-fired power stations have gone. All we've got is gas. We're importing no end of our power from abroad. We're importing the nuclear power from France. What's next going to happen? Now, as a farmer, I know that next year we're going to face a climate charge levy on our fertiliser because it's not produced in this country and it uses carbon abroad and it's shipped in. The levy will be somewhere around 80 to 100 pounds a tonne of nitrogen. It's not on. So there's lots of national level politics that needs to be discussed openly, freely, and not into a dive. And then there's local things and issues which people have touched on tonight about how you work together. So it's a really complex problem. And I know from the things I've seen at the CPRE that even they who are against, you know, what's going on, it's very difficult to get a coherent thing together so that people know what they're talking to. But the energy security is as important as food security. And I've not heard anybody come up with a solution yet as to how we tackle this in a sensible manner. And I'll just finish up. Everybody talks about net zero. You forget the word net. It should have 2 T's on it because we're always going to have diesel engines in some situations. You can't get away from it. A lorry driver sitting next to me, if you've got an electric lorry, it'll probably be about 28 tonne. And it'll have a range of about 100 miles. And I'll tell him to go to John O'Groats and you'll have to charge up about 6 times and do 2 loads to get one up there. So there's a lot of problems that the civil servants don't seem to have the expertise and the knowledge and the skills to discuss properly. Our politicians, I'm afraid, haven't got the expertise because they're doing very much knee-jerk to things that are happening like this. And like the applications that are going on, if they're all together, they'll be pulled up and taken at a ministerial level. That means he'll be signing off what the civil servants tell him.
Yeah, what things I'm thinking about parish council, and a lot of the stuff you said is quite interesting to me, especially the privatisation of things and just how, what are they getting out of it? I find that quite interesting. But I've got another issue with everything that is what the farmers wanting from it. So obviously with post Brexit and all the EU grants that we used to have, I'm just wondering if this is an avenue to keep them stable. Because recently my husband's actually renting a lockup, and it's just another way of them being able to diversify if they can't actually maintain some of the land, rather than selling it off to developers that are just going to come in, build all these houses and stuff, which obviously is going to have to happen at some point. But I'm just wondering if that's something that's considered. Like, I know some of you are farmers, but the ones that are actually helping with the applications, has anyone spoken with them to see what the problem is? And if it's not, but I've always thought with the solar panels that you could, obviously, I know it's a lot of money, but you can rip them up. Whereas if you're building concrete and houses and estates, that's permanent forever. So I don't know. Still need to learn more about it, but I was just looking at that.
That's another perspective.
Yeah.
Victor.
Yes, what we ought to be doing, and I reiterate before, is that as a body of councillors, through your organisation of the SPCA, we have ideal avenue straight ministerial issue. We get other associations as well around the country hitting the same targets, because it's going to be a national issue. We better enforce than singly. We can argue this point better for everybody and ask them to say the evidence that we've been portrayed shows that this isn't good for the country. Let's look at it more details. I'd also recommend every parish council, every town council look at doing neighbourhood plans. It will help you as well as your parishes on all sorts of aspects.
Ryan, somebody wanted to come in, I think.
Is it me?
Yes. It is.
Great. Hi. Firstly, thank you very much for letting me join the meeting. I'm actually joining you from North Wales. We're currently fighting an application to install a very large BESS very near to our farmland where we live, about sort of 2 gigawatt hours worth of storage. It's a massive thing. My question was really to one of the gentlemen who spoke about NESO and the grid connections. We've been led to believe that because of the ridiculous sort of overcapacity in terms of applications versus what we actually need, that there will be a weeding out process, and that NESO are currently starting to embark upon this, and that to some extent whether an individual project makes it through will depend upon whether they reach certain milestones. Do you have any specific information about this? Is this accord with what you know, or do you think this is actually incorrect?
Chair, should I answer that?
Yeah.
Should I answer?
Yes, please.
Good evening. It's a very good point you make. Knesso have actually been given some money to come up with a process for weeding it out. No one has set any quantum for the issues that they should look at. We've all brought different issues up here. I have great doubt that NESO, as a national organisation, will consider 3/4 of them. What they're trying to do is unblock the applications that they've got, which were taken on a first come, first served basis, and are struggling how they can prioritise ones which will be of greatest benefit to the country. Nobody's given them any criteria.
Right.
So I'm afraid it's a bit of a dismal answer. But we'll have civil servants coming up with some gold-plated answer, I'm quite sure, as I'm sure the farmers amongst you have seen how we've managed to change all the EU directives on farming into gold-plated priorities that cost a fortune in farmers' time and energy to try and extract a little bit of cash out of the scheme.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We aim to finish at 8 o'clock. It is now 8 o'clock, and I have got a big blank under the words "the way forward." I'm not quite sure what to say at this point. It seems the more we discuss it, the more that people come in, we enlarge it. We've got to China and India and the States. I'm not sure.
Again, as
I'm not going to agree with everything.
council, one of the problems about light industrial sites and distribution sites get into that category. And we see a proliferation of distribution sites, and allegedly the country needs ever more. They are perfect micro power stations for solar power. Well, there's absolutely no doubt about it. The problem is, as my fellow ex-county councillor will testify, is that when I raised this at county to say that, look, we're developing these sites, we must insist as part of the bill that they have solar panels on there. I was completely taken out by the then leader of the council saying that's too onerous to ask that question. Well, I personally think that's wrong. But part of the problem is that these light industrial sites and distribution sites are actually owned and operated. They tend to be long-term leases with a pension fund who obviously puts them in. They're looking for very quick returns and things. So it does need legislation. It needs legislation, not at the national level. But you're absolutely right. I'd love to see all these Amazon warehouses, all these Timo warehouses, whatever, having solar panels to say my house has got solar panels.
Can I just? Oh, can I just? He's quite right actually. 'Cause the industrial estate on the A34 going out towards Stowe hadn't got enough power for the extra building on it, so solar panels were put on the roofs to give it the extra power. The local government pension fund has just built a new building, distribution building on Vernon's Park down at near Wolverhampton. It's a £13 million building with solar on the roof, and it's got a water harvesting system because the drainage system can't take the water. So it harvests the water and then releases it, but it feeds the toilets. There's a whole host of things that we should be talking about. The way forward is parish councils, and I'll say this as the Vice President of CPRE, you need to join organisations who have the same common aims as yourself, because they've all got the same idea. You send a motion on to SPCA, CPRE sends something on to National CPRE saying, what are we going to do about the proliferation of solar farms? What are we going to do about net zero? How are we going to get there? And all the rest of it. Because I guarantee, a small nuclear module reactor is not very big. The actual safety bit around it, you'd fit in here. The security around it would take up Stowe by Chartley, and it'd have to be there 24 hours a day with an armed guard, and you'd have to get your pass to get in. That's the expensive bit.
Thank you.
I'm going to raise one point, and my colleagues from South Staffordshire know about this. Like I'm saying, we've had a lot of applications for best solar panel farms. We've got a facility that is going to be built, and it's 750 acres, bigger than the NEC for warehousing. We says in the application, we want solar panels, but they turn around and says, okay, we'll put them, but we'll be able to connect for the next 30 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
And we're thinking that would generate enough power at 56 kilowatts per time, and you're thinking that's massive, but they've turned around and said, we can't do it because we've got no connection.
The gentleman there.
Just raise one little point. Italy has banned solar panels on green fields. carte blanche, not happening. Most continental countries you go to will see solar panels on roofs, on a few wind turbines, but you just don't have it on fields.
Okay.
It's difficult to achieve.
Tanya,
So, Councillor from Stowe, Chartley, Presidential. It's a question for Councillor Kelly. You said that you could take this to government. That's fine. But are you linked or can you link to other parish council associations? Because obviously, one parish council,
Association of London.
or association, needs the backing of those.
Yeah, we have monthly meetings with Calcs. So we have Warwickshire, Coventry, Nalk, and we have meetings online with also councils from down Devon, all over the country, and we have national points that are raised, and we have direct influence into Nalk with Jonathan Owen and all that.
That's all.
the gentleman here.
Can I just throw this one in? In 2020, 9.7 million people, 17.1% of the population of England, lived in rural areas. And according to the Church of England, that's increasing by 50,000 a year. I also discovered that 100,000 signatures leads to a debate in Parliament. I would have thought through perhaps your organisation and its associates, that would maybe one way of promoting this forward.
One last comment, I think.
The last point. I've learned an awful lot today, but as you said, Chairman, this has started to rain in China and Italy and everywhere else. I came today with a view of walking away, knowing what I have to do in my parish council. I'd like very much if we could agree from the bottom up. Yes, it's got to happen at a higher level. But what can we do today? I think that we should be asking ourselves right now. It's good if we walk out here and agree that we're all going to do a neighbourhood plan, if you haven't already got one, and anything else that we need to do at the parish council level. I understand that we're the council, I just want to start at the bottom.
I think I've got idea for it.
Yeah, the gentleman here wants to come in, but the trouble is, I know he will tell me I'm going to do it wrong.
Can you put the light? Because I agree with that gentleman.
Yeah.
The problem is, we're all talking about the merits of energy, etc., etc. But there's some communities going to get hit very badly with these developments. And people have come here today to listen to a strategy about to combat that. Now, the problem is that they have to go where there are pylons or where there's an electricity port.
Correct.
You mentioned one of the parish councils, 80% on Stowe. Now, that's obviously a case of cumulative effect, isn't it? So you have to get a landscape person in that does you a report on the cumulative effect of the landscape. Yeah. We've heard a gentleman over there was talking about a battery of S, and there's going to be a problem there with water. Now, I'm on the planning committee at Southlands. What you can ask for is a container from the developer that should there be a fire, that water is stored in that container. Many of those applicants are not doing it. I can refer to, there was a planning inspector's decision made in Devon where there was concern that any spent water affected the aquifer under the ground, and it was refused. Now, what you need to do and look at here is we can refuse these as district parish councils and district councils, but if you refuse it, it goes to the planning inspectorate.
Yeah.
Now, the planning inspectorate is listening to what the Labour government's telling them to do. And that's the problem. The only way you can fight it is look at what other planning inspectors, the historians, have been across the country on solar and BESS. Now, I can give you an example. In Swaddlecote, an inspector there refused a solar farm on best quality agricultural land. It's called BNV land. That land, BNV, is grade 1, 2 and 3A. Lower than that is 3B, 4 and 5. We thought we were onto something in South Staffs once we saw that application was refused in Swansea Code. We had one called Litty Wood Solar Farm. We applied everything we learned from that, and the inspector, they weight all these inquiries. They give it significant weight for this, moderate weight for that. They looked at all the B&B argument and said, well, we give that moderate weight. But at the end of the day, they decided the need, net zero, kicked in. It was a pressing need. So the inspector, purely on that, said that's why I need to make that decision. And this is the problem you've got. You need to look at the inspectors. Now, I was talking about neighbourhood plan. The neighbourhood plan is going to take 18 months to put into motion. All these applications are going to be coming in almost immediately. They're not going to protect you in the short term. Later on, what the gentleman's saying there, the fact they're saying it'll be 40 years before that be released, they're granting so many of them that they're saying it's temporary. But do you think in 40 years all these temporaries will come up and they'll close them all down? No, because they'll carry on. Some of the applications have gone to 50 years. And talking about the best, there is a clue here of how you can resist the bests and some of the solar farms, and that's noise, amenity. If you look at your policies, there should not be an effect on neighbours' amenity.
Yeah.
Some of these batteries are too close to people's houses.
Correct.
And one of the speakers mentioned, don't believe the professional experts. Well, certainly don't, because we've already done 5 solar farms in South Staffs, and we've done about 6 of the besties. I got one refused on my area, and they withdrew it because it was 135 metres from people's houses. But they've punched the figures on the decibels and checked the decibels, because if the noise is greater than the background, that's the noise you've got during the day, by 5, 10 decibels, it's not acceptable because it affects people's sleep.
Yeah.
And some of these are too close. So what I'm saying, in regard to that gentleman there, you need a strategy. You need to look at what reasons you can fight these. I agree, we do need energy, and I have heard all the arguments, but some of these are in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And some areas are getting too many developments put into their backyard. And it's not being NIMBY, it's just that they're taking all the planning, and this has got to be shared out. Thank you for listening to me.
No, Victor.
Fully agree with my colleague. And the key point I want to say is, as my colleague says, we need a strategy. That strategy would be, as I've said, on a lot of the noise issues, the effects on the environment, and all that sort of thing. We need to look at those more in depthly and get your local councillors on the planning committees to question those points. Yeah. So that we can, as an SPCA and as your councillors, higher level ones, put it to the planners and say, come on, you can't always just keep passing it.
Right. I'm worried about you, sir, because I think you've just summed it up beautifully. What have we decided we're going to do? Yeah. I think one thing that might help is that when we write an objection to present to our planning authority, would there be mileage in pushing that through you to spread to every other parish council, and then obviously to follow that with the result of whether it was supported or not? It's minor in one way, but at least it shows some sort of solidarity in a very, very difficult situation. And I think we've had some brilliant explanations of things that are worldwide, let alone national. And I don't think the thing that many of our parishioners understand or remember is that parish councils are the lowest of the low in terms of local government. And everybody expects a great deal. And actually, our powers to deliver are very limited. But I do believe that we should make some effort to do it. And my suggestion would be, as a minimal, that we should, if it's all right with you, Victor.
Yes,
That
definitely.
we push forward to Victor the objection, if there is an objection.
Because we will go to other calcs within the whole of the country, see if they've got the same issues,
They will.
and ask them what planning applications they've had and how they've got them refused, and if we can use them to emulate and put them into our planning issues.
It's always a balance, isn't it?
Got all that information. On tap, ready to go. If you can tap into it, but you need to remember.
Who has, sorry?
The solar allowance, UK solar allowance,
How much does it cost?
it's free.
Oh, right.
Obviously, you've got to be on the right side of the fence.
Grease your palm with silver as you leave.
Like CPRE is about 25.
Well, the dark side getting too many ideas.
Yeah, you got them all.
So you are going to be the last speaker, so make it really good.
You can't do possibly. I said this first time around, I think, make sure your district and board has got an up-to-date local plan that takes account of renewables. Because 5 years is an awful long time. If you've got local plans, we've done 5 years ago, we started 10 years ago. This is a fast-moving environment. It's moving out. Nobody wants overcliff irrigation. Everybody wants them in the right place. There's an acceptance that we need to have renewables. Putting all those together. If you've got a local plan which is discussed and accepted by your local communities, water and all, because there's housing in there as well, and you can have the same issues about housing. That has to be approved by the inspectors that it's fit. Once you've got that, that's the Bible to hang your development on to stop
Thank you.
elsewhere.
I'm going to stop you, sir, because we've run over by 20 minutes, and I just need to say how impressed I've been with people that have delivered from the floor and from the panel. And can I just say your commitment and your energy has been superb. Thank you ever so much.